Google just built something that makes every other AI company, OpenAI, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, look like they're playing an entirely different game. And the terrifying part? They've been planning this for years. Before we go further, if you're into stories about tech, power, and the people reshaping the future, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. 3 years ago, Google was a joke in AI. Their chatbot told people to eat rocks. Their image model had to be pulled offline because it kept generating the wrong things. Their CEO was internally declaring emergencies. Wall Street was asking if the company was finished. Then last week, May 19th, 2026, Google held its annual developer conference. And what they showed the world wasn't a company playing catch-up. It was a company that had quietly built something nobody else could touch. The question isn't whether Google has recovered. The question is whether anyone can stop what they've built, and whether they even had a chance to begin with. But to understand why Google now looks untouchable, you have to go back to the moment everyone thought they were dead. It's February 2023. Google rushes out Bard, their answer to ChatGPT. In the live demo, it answers a question about the James Webb Telescope. Completely wrong, confidently wrong, in front of the whole world. That single moment wiped over $100 billion from Google's market value in a single day. And it didn't stop there. When they added AI overviews into Google Search, the AI was telling users to eat rocks to get minerals, to add glue to pizza, that smoking during pregnancy was fine. The headlines were brutal. For a company that had basically invented modern machine learning, this was embarrassing. Critics said Google was too big, too slow, too bureaucratic. They said the culture of caution was killing them. But here's what almost nobody noticed at the time. While everyone was laughing at Google, they were quietly doing something that no other company on Earth was in a position to do. By 2024, the legal battle that had threatened to break Google apart, the US government's antitrust case, was wrapping up. The judge decided not to force a breakup, and there's a reason for that. AI had changed everything. Suddenly, Google Search had real competition for the first time. The judge looked at the landscape and said, breaking up the old monopoly doesn't make sense when the entire game has already shifted. That decision freed Google. And the moment it did, they started shipping at a pace that nobody saw coming. VO3 for video generation, Nano Banana for images, Notebook LM, which went completely viral, Gemini embedded into Gmail, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Android, Chrome, every product they owned touched by AI. But even that isn't the real story. Because Google wasn't just building AI products, they were rebuilding the entire infrastructure underneath them, starting from the very bottom of the stack. Everyone knows NVIDIA. They're the company that makes the chips that power basically every large language model on the planet, including ChatGPT. Their stock went from obscure to the most valuable company in the world because of AI. But Google has been quietly designing their own chips for years. They call them TPUs, Tensor Processing Units. Unlike NVIDIA's GPUs, which are built to do many types of math, TPUs are purpose-built for exactly the kind of computation AI needs. For a long time, Google only used these chips internally, training their own models, running their cloud. Then something shifted. Gemini 3, their breakthrough model, was trained entirely on TPUs, not a single NVIDIA chip, and it outperformed GPT-5 on nearly every benchmark that mattered. Then Google did something almost nobody expected. They started selling TPUs outright. They cut a deal to sell 1 million TPUs directly to Anthropic. There were rumors that Meta and OpenAI, two of NVIDIA's biggest customers, may be next. Let that land for a second. Google is selling chips to the companies that were supposed to be its biggest threats. And the chip story is only the first layer, because what Google does with those chips inside their data centers is where the real advantage lives. Microsoft and Oracle made a massive bet on AI infrastructure. They built giant data centers, filled them with NVIDIA chips, and rented that computing power out to companies like OpenAI to train and run their models. It sounds like a great business, until you look at the math. NVIDIA's chips come with NVIDIA's prices. Then you add construction costs, equipment, the electricity to power it all. By the time Microsoft or Oracle charges their customers, the margins are razor thin. Google's situation is completely different. They designed the chips. They own the infrastructure. They engineered the hardware and the software to work together from the ground up. Everything is optimized, especially the energy consumption. And when energy is your biggest cost in AI, that efficiency gap becomes enormous. Google Cloud is now growing at 30% annually. It's nearly 20% of total Google revenue. The product that everyone said AI would destroy, search, has actually been fine. But cloud is now the engine underneath the whole company. And it gets more interesting because Google isn't just renting compute to other companies. They're building the model that runs on top of all of it. And what they just unveiled at Google I/O last week is the clearest signal yet that the gap between Google and everyone else is not closing, it's widening. When Gemini 3 dropped in November 2025, OpenAI internally declared a code red. That's not a metaphor, that's what was actually reported. The model was so far ahead of GPT-5 across benchmarks that OpenAI went into crisis mode. But last week at Google I/O, they didn't stop there. Google announced Gemini Omni, a model described as capable of creating anything from any input. Text, video, images, audio. It handles all of it with a single unified architecture. Then they launched Gemini 3.5 Flash, which runs at 4 times the speed of competing frontier models while matching their intelligence on the hardest benchmarks. And this isn't just about a chatbot being smarter. Google's AI mode, embedded directly into search, has already passed 1 billion monthly users. 1 billion, just 1 year after launch. And query volume is doubling every single quarter. OpenAI's ChatGPT has around 900 million weekly active users. Gemini the app has 750 million monthly active users and is growing at 5 times the rate. Analysts are predicting it crosses 1 billion by the 3rd quarter of this year. The model war isn't over, but Google is no longer behind. But here's the thing about model wars. They're almost a distraction, because the real moat isn't the model, it's everything around it. Think about what Google actually controls. Search, Gmail, Google Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Maps, Calendar, Meet, Photos, YouTube, Android, Chrome. Over 3 billion people use at least one of these products every single day. Now Google is threading Gemini through all of it. Gmail Live lets you talk to your inbox. AI Inbox manages your tasks. Google Pics creates images directly inside Workspace. AI Mode is inside Search itself. Gemini is now the default assistant on Android devices, reaching twice as many mobile users as standalone apps. And last week, they announced AI-powered smart glasses, built with Samsung, Warby Parker, and Gentle Monster, launching this fall. They work on iPhone too, the first Android XR device ever confirmed to be cross-platform. Here's what this all means practically. The more of this you use, the more it learns about you. And the more it learns, the harder it becomes to leave. That's not an accident. That's the strategy. But even Google has a weak spot, and it just got exposed in a way that nobody expected.
For all of Google's advantages, there is one move that could genuinely hurt them. Apple and OpenAI cut a deal. ChatGPT is now the default AI assistant built into Safari on iOS 26. That means every iPhone user, over 1 billion people, now gets ChatGPT before they ever open a Google app. Mobile is where the war for AI adoption is actually being fought. And if Apple locks that distribution door, Google faces a distribution problem it can't buy its way out of easily. This is not a small thing. Google has historically paid Apple billions every year just to be the default search engine in Safari. Now ChatGPT gets that slot for AI. Google's counter is Android, and Android is the dominant mobile OS globally, especially outside the US. But in the markets where Apple dominates, North America, Western Europe, Japan, this OpenAI partnership is a direct threat. The question isn't whether Google can survive it. They can. The question is whether this is the one crack in the wall that gives OpenAI time to catch up. So where does this leave us? Let's zoom all the way out, because the real picture is bigger than any single battle.
Here is the uncomfortable truth about the AI race. Every company in this space specializes in one or two layers of the stack. OpenAI makes models and products. NVIDIA makes chips. Microsoft and Oracle run data centers. Meta makes hardware and models. Apple makes hardware. Google does all of it. Chips, data centers, foundation models, products, ecosystem, hardware. Every single layer controlled by one company, engineered to work together. That's not just a business advantage, that's a structural advantage. And structure is the hardest thing to copy. Google has been a machine learning company since the 1990s. They wrote the research paper that invented the transformer architecture, the technology that made ChatGPT possible in the first place. And now, with vertical integration that nobody else can replicate, they're nearing a $4 trillion valuation. The irony is that everyone spent years asking whether Google could survive AI. The better question, the one we should have been asking all along, is whether AI can survive without Google. You already know the answer.